The other day, UFC President Dana White announced Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira for UFC 309 at MSG in November, finally ending what I thought was the Michael Chandler-Conor McGregor saga. But that is just not the truth. We have more information now, and I need you guys to buckle up for this one because this is going to be a long video. Because Michael Chandler is going around humiliating himself, begging for the Conor McGregor fight still, insisting that the Conor McGregor fight is still going to happen in 2025. And honestly, these interviews that I'm going to show you here today, and there's a lot to touch on, are some of the most delusional, embarrassing, humiliating, degrading interviews that I've seen Michael Chandler give just yet. He talks about his wife being a single mom. He copes about the fight endlessly. And not only that, he dick rides Conor McGregor repeatedly throughout these interviews. Complete and utter embarrassment. And to top it all off, he says the negative sentiment coming from the fans he believes are bot farms. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't. You just physically can't make it up. But let's jump right into it with one of my favorite clips of all time. This is from January 5th, 2024. And I'll make this very brief and quick because we got a lot to get into. Do me a favor, guys. If you enjoyed these videos, like the video, share the video, and double check and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. But let's jump right into it. This is Michael Chandler way back when.
And yeah, June 29th is what I'm preparing for. I'm leaving my family here in the next couple weeks to head down to Florida to get into fight camp. The fight camp that has been looming now for a year.
This is January of this year. And this is just crazy. And this all ties into a recent interview. He's talking about his family, leaving his family, and his wife being a single mom. But let's listen to Brett Okamoto's reaction because this is just an OG clip that we have to listen to.
And yeah, June 29th, we take this dude's head off.
It's only January 4th, man. You're going to leave the family and head to Florida? Are you training for this thing for 6 months?
No, I mean, anyway, in 60 days, we will be almost within 3 months of it. So,
dude, Brett Okamoto couldn't even let that slide. At least I think this is Brett Okamoto. I can't tell. This is like 480p. Somebody, please get Brett Okamoto a new camera. For the love of God, ESPN, Brett, I will send you money personally to get a new camera. Please message me. But yeah, he's leaving his family in January of 2024 for a mythical fight at a mythical weight class that still never happened. And now he's got a fight booked against Charles Oliveira in November. Now, this clip we're going to look at is from Michael Chandler's personal YouTube channel. Now, I'm only going to show you one clip from this because the video reaction I did on Friday, I actually went through this at the end of the video. So if you missed it, go back and watch that video. I will link it down in the description. I react to this the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the video. I'll link that video in the description. But I just want to play this because this is the first thing that came out from Michael Chandler after the Charles Oliveira news came out. Listen to this.
Candidates: one fight of the year against Justin Gaethje, one KO of the year against Tony Ferguson, one debut of the year against Dan Hooker, debut of the year, fight of the year, knockout of the year in 25 months. That is why I'm taking the Charles Oliveira fight. Why?
Makes no sense, but what I want to show you guys is this man is so heartbroken. This man is so mentally broken by Conor McGregor. He had to break out his trophies to cope. Like, look, I had all these fights and I knocked out Tony Ferguson. He knocked out Tony Ferguson. That's his last win. And he has to cope by bringing out his trophies. He's sitting on a desk. This is a man that's not mentally all there. But let's get into the newer interviews. This interview isn't the most delusional one. The one that's actually the most delusional is this one we're going to get to. This was at UFC Noche at Sphere. Really, it's the Sphere, but they kept saying Sphere. And not only that, I forgot to tease this off the beginning. At the end of this video, we're going to hear what Conor McGregor has to say. We have an update from Conor McGregor, so we'll get into that at the end of the video. That's the last thing we're going to listen to. So right here is just, I mean, he's still insisting that he's going to fight Conor McGregor. Listen to this. I mean, this is just delusion at its finest.
I keep my mouth shut. I'm smart in that regard. It's not.
By the way, No, the sauna interview gave it away. I told you guys he was going to fight Charles Oliveira.
Not about me. It's about what we're going to do as an organization. This is a great opportunity. You know, like this is the #1 contender fight. I beat Charles Oliveira. I finally get the opportunity to go fight for the title and cement myself as the #1 guy in the world.
By the way, how ridiculous is it that Chandler's last win was over 2 years ago and he's in a #1 contender fight? If that doesn't show how far the UFC has fallen, a guy on a 1-fight losing streak who's inactive for years, literal years, is supposedly in a #1 contender fight. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And a referendum on what Dana White and the UFC are doing to the sport.
I love the Conor fight. I want to fight Conor. I will fight Conor.
Yeah, you're going to really manifest it, Chandler. You're going to manifest it for sure.
Conor's not my next opponent, but I am Conor's next opponent, no matter what. He comes back to the UFC. That road goes through Nashville, Tennessee. And
all right, it's going through Nashville, Tennessee. Let's skip ahead because he's asked, will you fight early next year against Conor McGregor? And listen to what he has to say.
Conor will happen early next year. I mean, in terms of...
By the way, this is single-handedly one of the craziest things that I've ever heard come out of Michael Chandler's mouth. Okay? One of the craziest things. Will you fight Conor McGregor early 2025? And listen to the answer that he gives here. It is craziness. It's going to blow your mind. I'm not being hyperbolic here. Wait for this.
Of timeline, of course, nobody knows, but do you think that will be your second fight?
I do. I think it's, I'm not going to tell you a timeline. The UFC has their timeline. I'm sure they've spoken to Conor about the timeline. Hopefully, maybe, possibly.
What? We got to rewind that. The UFC has spoken to Conor about the timeline. Hopefully, maybe, possibly. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows at all? Dana doesn't even talk to him.
Fights?
I do. I think it's, I'm not going to tell you a timeline. The UFC has their timeline. I'm sure they've spoken to Conor about the timeline. Hopefully, maybe, possibly.
What? Yeah, hopefully, maybe, possibly. Who knows? Who knows if he's ever going to fight again? I don't believe he will. At least not. He's not fighting Chandler. I'll guarantee that for the most part.
But it was too long for me. Right now,
heading towards 3 years was a little bit too long for him. Now we're going to jump ahead because he copes a little bit and he says, this was the right time to pivot. This was the right time to pivot. And I'm still fighting him though. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. I'm still next in line for the red panty night.
Right now was the right time to make a pivot. It's not that the Conor fight is not happening. It's just that it's not happening right now. And if he ever does pony up, if he ever does figure out his life, if he ever is able to string together a training camp, if he ever is able to get his house in order and be a man and come back to the UFC and fight, he's fighting me. So that's where we're at. But I got a title to go chase.
Well, talk about delusional, by the way. But by the way, I will say this. Michael Chandler is finally making the right decision by actually moving on to Oliveira. He can figure out Conor afterwards. That's what I've been saying for the last 2 years. Fight someone else, and then you could still fight Conor eventually as well. It's not like Conor's itching to return anytime soon. You can turn around in 4 months and fight Conor. It doesn't matter. But yeah, still holding out hope for that Conor fight. And again, this interview is nothing. To quote Dana White talking about the U2 versus Noche, this is child's play compared to the actual presser he gave at UFC Noche. But we're going to get to that in a second. Let's jump right ahead. And he talks about, I was given assurances. He says this, I think, in the other interview as well. I was given assurances. That's why I waited it out.
Yes. Now, obviously, the sport moves fast. Fights happen, wins, losses, performances. If I go out there and lay an egg against Charles Oliveira, maybe I lose the fight. But
by the way, the assurances were I actually misspoke there. The assurances were about, was he given assurances that he's going to be Conor's next opponent? And you see, he doesn't even know.
That's why I love these type of opportunities, because in 2004, a young kid from High Ridge, Missouri walked onto the University of Missouri.
All right, he walked on, pushed the rock up the hill, all that good nonsense. I'm trying to blow through these clips because believe me when I say we got a lot to go through, okay? Next clip we're going to take a look at is him actually questioning his decision-making but not his decision-making to sit around and wait for Conor for 2 years. He's questioning his decision-making to finally move on. Where is his family? Where is his manager? Where is his friends? Where is anybody who can give him sound advice? He should have hired me as a manager, to be quite honest. I mean, this is craziness. He's questioned maybe this is the wrong decision moving on against Oliveira.
Go bet on myself, and we'll see how it all plays out. Maybe it's a bad decision, but there's nothing better than a guy who goes out and makes a bad decision, and maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, because that's what the human spirit was created for.
By the way, if he moves on and gets KO'd by Oliveira, I think his chances of fighting Conor are actually better. If he beats Oliveira, I think his chances are worse. Losing to Oliveira probably makes his chances of fighting Conor better. 2-fight losing streak, Conor's be like that guy behind the tree, that meme, rubbing his hands behind the tree. Next clip and last clip from this interview before we get into the really delusional interview is him asked, if you're offered a title shot, will you take the title shot against Islam over Conor? And he actually gives a decent answer here.
It's going to be Islam because this is the way it was supposed to be. It's going to be Islam, and I believe I think I beat Charles at Madison Square Garden, and then good old-fashioned, passionate, hard-working Division I Missouri American wrestling beats Dagestani Sambo every day of the week.
All right, so he take the Islam fight. Actually, smart thing to do. Smart thing to do. And he could have got a title shot for the last 2 years. People are like, Chandler could have never got a title shot. Yeah, look at Dustin Poirier. 1-fight win streak, got a title shot. Look at Chandler now in a number 1 contender fight. He says his dream is to fight for a title. He could have fought for a title over the last 2 years. Now, he already did fight for a title, technically, but to win a title, he needs another opportunity. It's crazy because Chandler shouldn't even be in the rankings. He has a win. His last win's against Tony Ferguson. Dan Hooker, he beat Dan Hooker in his UFC debut, back in 2020? Dan Hooker damn near fell out of the top 15 and made his way back to the top 5, all in this whole time span of Chandler flirting with Conor McGregor on The Ultimate Fighter. Okay, now let's move on to the press conference at UFC Noche. He gave his little press conference. I think this is actually during the fights. Chandler is giving hand. I don't know if he's intoxicated. I don't know if he's on drugs. I don't think he is. One of the most delusional interviews that I have ever seen. Embarrassing, humiliating. It just kept getting worse and worse. Starting off with the very first question. We're 18 seconds in. By the way, everything I show you in this video, I will link down in the description. This is 18 seconds in, and there really hasn't even been a question asked yet. It's just kind of getting the mic together and getting a drink, and now he's going to answer. Now he's going to be asked the first question. Listen to this. This is just insanity.
Like the last 2 years, we've been asking you for an update on when you're going to
There's his drink. There's his drink.
return, when you're going to fight Conor, this and that. But we find out, less than 24 hours ago, you're not fighting Conor, you're fighting Charles Oliveira instead in Madison Square Garden. So I guess how soon did this come about? And we saw your video of explaining why you're fighting Charles. But I guess, what's it like to now not be thinking of Conor McGregor for right now?
Oh, I'm still going to be thinking about Conor McGregor.
That's the first thing out of his mouth. If that doesn't set the stage for this entire press conference that we're going to go through, and this thing is 20 minutes long, I'm probably going to show you about 5 to 6 minutes of the press conference. That just sets the tone. That just sets the tone. Listen to this again.
We saw your video of explaining why you're fighting Charles. But I guess, what's it like to now not be thinking of Conor McGregor for right now?
Oh, I'm still going to be thinking about Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, as I asserted at the very beginning, Conor McGregor is still not off the hook.
So he's still thinking about Conor McGregor. He's going to be imagining and envisioning that Charles Oliveira is Conor McGregor out there. He's still hoping and praying that Conor puts him in the north-south position. But let's carry on. There's more.
Conor McGregor's road back to the UFC still goes through Nashville, Tennessee, and Michael Chandler. We must finish TUF 31. It has to happen. We're at the.
Does anyone, let me know down in the comments, does anyone give a rat's ass about TUF, whatever, 31 or whatever the hell it is? Barely anyone watched. I forgot it even existed. How long ago did it end? What, August? It ended August of 2023. That was the live finale. I think it was UFC 292, if I'm not mistaken. O'Malley versus Aljo. That was the finale of The Ultimate Fighter. Yeah, I don't think anyone cares about that anymore. Yeah, they watch the season. They're still dying to see these coaches fight each other. Fun fact, I believe there's only 2 times the coaches did not fight each other coming off The Ultimate Fighter. Conor McGregor was in both of them. The one was against Uriah Faber, but they weren't ever supposed to fight. And then the other one's against Michael Chandler, which they weren't ever going to fight. Let's be honest. I've been calling that since January of 2023. Go back on the channel if you don't believe me.
Same weight class.
it was too long of a build-up for it not to happen. But you know, as I kind of laid out in my YouTube video that I already filmed an instant reaction. I've known this for 4 weeks.
He's known for 4 weeks. I've known for 2 fucking years. We've all known for at least a year. Everyone else has kind of jumped on board this year. But yeah, he's known for 4 weeks, guys. He's not fighting. Chandler really found out 4 weeks ago he's not fighting Conor.
But I'm a consummate professional, so nothing is ever going to leak. My lips are sealed. No matter how much media reaches out to me, no matter how much people want to reach out to me.
His lips are sealed until he gets in the cage with Conor McGregor, which is never going to happen. But I knew this was coming. I told you that Chandler was finally going to move on after I watched that sauna interview. I told you guys it was most likely going to be Charles Oliveira. Go back and watch if you don't believe me. But let's jump ahead. He talks about, yeah, it was really time to pivot here. We had to pivot. We had to pivot from this fight. And he actually gives some information about some potential other dates here. Listen to this.
Pivot only because of the timeline. And you guys can ask Dana how long the timeline was going to be until Conor actually comes back. But it was too long for me. I'm not waiting around. We had a fight booked January 29th.
We had a fight booked January 29th. I don't know. Was it June 29th? Did he just misspeak here? Is that what he means? Or was he talking about next year? I'm assuming maybe he meant June 29th is what I'm assuming. Because that is what UFC 303 was on, if I'm not mistaken. June 29th is what I'm waiting for. So maybe he just said January. But then he gets into some other potential dates here in a second.
He pulls out of the fight. Immediately we start looking at other options. I almost was going to fight tonight here. It was offered to Max. I respect Max because Max is a champion. Max is going to go beat Ilia Topuria, I believe. Other options were on the table, but here we are. Now I'm fighting Charles, #1 contender fight. And I've always wanted to chase the title. That's always been my goal. I beat Charles. And then if Conor can get his house in order finally, then he and I can finish that. If not, I'll go beat Islam. There's lots.
So if not, he'll go beat Islam. Now, I thought he mentioned some more dates, but maybe it's in the next clip because I'm only skipping ahead a few seconds here to just save some time. But I think this is when he starts mentioning other dates that were thrown out there for him versus Conor.
When everybody was constantly saying, hey, why is Chandler sticking around? Why is Chandler waiting around? This guy's never coming back. I had so much more assurances behind the scenes than any of you guys know, than any of the fighters know, than any of the fans know.
How do those assurances pay off, Chandler? Who was more reliable in giving you information about your career, the UFC or me? That's what I'd like to know. Yeah, those assurances really worked out. Congratulations on those assurances. Go pay your bills with those assurances from Dana White and Hunter Campbell in the UFC and Conor McGregor. And I can't believe in the end of this interview, he starts to brown-nose Conor McGregor again. I mean, seriously, it's crazy. He'll sniff Conor McGregor's asshole until the day he's gone from this earth. And that is disturbing.
Constantly in contact with Dana and Hunter at all times. And I've got a great relationship with them, and we have a very mutually beneficial, symbiotic relationship where they trust me, they know who I am, and I trust them. And
now he's about to get into the dates.
So we've had constant communication the entire time, but I don't remember exactly how it went, except for the fact that as soon as Conor pulled out of the fight, it was, hey, if we can't book this thing in September, you know, August 31st was the first date that got thrown out.
So August 31st. I guess they would have added a pay-per-view. That didn't come to fruition. Then September.
If we can't do it by then, and if it's going to trickle into 2025, I'll go bet on myself. In 2009.
All right, then he goes into a spiel that he's walk on this, walk on that, push the rock uphill, wander around in the forest. Listen, you know, I'm tired of hearing him say he's betting on himself because you had no other option. Like, the only other option was wait until you were too old to ever fight again and still beg for the Conor McGregor fight, or wait for your sunset clause, which is 5 years after the date you signed your UFC contract, and pray you could go fight Conor in BKFC or somewhere else. This is not betting on yourself. You didn't decide this. This was forced upon you because Conor was not going to fight you ever. Next clip, we're going to jump ahead. He talks about 303 being the tipping point and says, yeah, I believed Conor would have showed up. I can't believe and it's crazy. And I told you guys this in real time when I was telling you guys the fight was canceled and everyone else was being dead silent. And people were rubbing it in when Ariel was saying, talks are looking positive. He didn't know until you guys knew that the fight was off. That's crazy. And I told you guys that back then too. He didn't know anything.
And then the Conor fight becomes even bigger.
So 303 was the breaking point in terms of, like, all right, we have to move on for now.
I mean, it was the most real thing that we had, right? Because for over a year, it was dates thrown out and there was all kinds of stuff going on. But we actually had a contract. I got a bout agreement. I signed it. Conor McGregor, June 29th at this weight, at this venue. And then,
isn't that crazy? He finally got a bout agreement. And it was June 29th, 2024. Meanwhile, he's supposed to have been fighting him since February of 2023. There was dates of September 2023, and then December 2023, and then April of 2024, and then June of 2024. Then he was throwing out the Sphere, and then he was throwing out December. He's like, December makes a whole lot of sense. But yeah.
And he pulls out of the fight. So it was the one that stung the most, obviously. But this has happened to me before. In all of my hundreds of wrestling matches and 31 fights, I've never missed weight. I've never pulled out of a fight. And Conor's never pulled out of a fight. So even all the way up until the moment that Hunter Campbell called me on a Thursday, 14 days before the fight, I still believed that Conor was going to show up even if there was an injury. And
this man got left at the altar. Conor McGregor left this man at the altar. This is the face of a man that's been traumatized by Conor McGregor. I almost feel sorry for him, and I would feel sorry for him. But I wouldn't dare disrespect him. I wouldn't dare disrespect him by feeling sorry for him. That'd be the ultimate disrespect.
I'm not going to say he's not dedicated and fully invested in the craft anymore, but I believe it's a testament to who I am. And if he was lined up against anybody else not named Michael Chandler, he would have shown up on June 29th.
Now he goes on to suck off Conor even more, but there he missed a golden opportunity. Yeah, I'm not going to say he's not dedicated. Like what? Chandler, even though he's finally making the right decision now, you can't do anything about the past. The past is the past. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time is right now. And he's finally making the right move and moving on. But what he should have done is he should have moved on and be like, yeah, Conor's a bitch. He's scared of me. He doesn't want to fight me. He's doing everything to avoid me. He doesn't want the smoke. He's scared of me. He's terrified that I'm going to send him and his UFC career into irrelevancy. That is what Chandler should have done. But instead, he's giving these interviews now, and he's deep-throating him. And you haven't even seen that yet. He gets to it a little bit later. Is deep-throating Conor like, yeah, Conor, I respect him so much, and he's earned the right to do this. He's earned the right to make you waste your career? This is craziness. I don't understand why Chandler didn't take the Oliveira fight, say, yeah, I'm sick of waiting around. I want to go for that title. Like, that's been my dream forever. I'm pissed off. Conor's wasted my career. But guess what? If he ever decides to step to these waters, I'm going to go out there and I will brutalize him. I don't care if it's a week's notice, a day's notice. He's terrified of me, and I refuse to let him avoid me. The only way he's never fighting me is if he never returns to the UFC. I'm going to resume my career as normal. I'm going to chase after the title. But if he dares to come back and dares to probably return to the UFC, and he's out there, getting more sexual assault charges than wins over the last, 7-8 years, then I will be the guy he returns to. But for now, I'm going to resume my career, and I'm not even going to think about him anymore. But instead, he's just, yeah, I'm definitely fighting Conor. I'm definitely going to fight Conor. I'm next up for Conor. I respect him wholeheartedly. I mean, it's just delusional and embarrassing.
I know you said you had that contract, but I mean, you did the Ultimate Fighter, and there were rumored dates even before the June fight that you were supposed to have. So if the UFC had come to you and said, like,
By the way, he defends the UFC, says, yeah, the UFC didn't string me along. Nobody strung me along. We thought it was going to happen.
He might not fight in 2 years. Would this even have been a conversation, or would you have already fought by then?
No. I mean, originally it was going to be September after the Ultimate Fighter, and
so there you go. But I told you guys wasn't going to happen. I was called crazy for that. Everyone now says we all knew it. We all saw it coming. I told you it wasn't going to happen in September. But he confirms right there, I would have never sat out for this long. Should have listened to me. He told me, Joey, don't you dare talk about me and my illustrious career. We all know I made the right decision. That's what Chandler actually said to me personally. We all know I made the right decision. No, you didn't. Now you made the right decision, but before you didn't. You wasted 2 years of your career for no reason. You can justify and cope about it all you want. But yeah, there was dates of September 2023. And
it's, once again, it can be looked at by...
Here we go. Some more cope. Some delusional cope here.
Hey, the people who are not close and to the situation and not privy to the information that the UFC strung this whole thing along. Nobody was more upset about this thing falling through than the UFC and myself.
So he was devastated. He was traumatized. He was heartbroken. He was walking through the woods, struggling to get his bearings, crying his eyes out, looking for a rock to push uphill. One dude on his mind. Finally, he's pivoted. I believe, personally, for Chandler, this is a weight lifted off his shoulders. He's like, I'm finally moving on. I'm damn near 39 years old, going on 40 years old. I've sat around for 2 years. I could have got a free title shot because Islam's kind of cleaned out the division a bit. It's not like there's a million contenders lined up. I know Armin's next, but there's not a million contenders lined up. Look at Dustin Poirier, undeserved title shot. That could have been Chandler. He could have fluked the title win. He's got nasty power. He could have had crazy, exciting fights, but instead he sat around like a dog on a chain, waiting for Conor McGregor to tell him to jump. Just craziness. And he's like, yeah, the UFC didn't string me along. Yeah, because Dana was saying publicly, yeah, I wouldn't advise him to wait. He said that publicly. I'm not going to show you the clip, but he did. Next clip. This is where he kind of hints at a delay with Conor, but he doesn't give any answers. I don't think he knows anything, but maybe he knows a little bit. But he's asked, do you know what the delay with Conor is? Do you know what the delay is? And I think it's a multitude of reasons, but we'll get to that in a second. I'll tell you what I believe the delay is, and I've been telling you guys this for a long time.
Hi, Michael. I'm just curious, what do you think the delay is with Conor?
And by the way, I think he defends Conor a bit here and starts brown-nosing him here.
I know what the delay is, but I can't tell you guys. No, not really. Maybe. I
don't think he knows. I don't think anybody's ever told him. It's just Conor doesn't give a shit about you. That's it. That's it. To be honest, what the real delay is there's a multitude of reasons. One, Conor's out partying, drinking, doing drugs. Conor only wants to come back for relevancy. He has more than enough money. He's out on a yacht. He's out cheating on his wife in the NBA Finals public restroom, whether it's consensually or not. And also you have contract negotiations going on with the UFC and Conor McGregor. And Conor even talks about that later on when we're going to look at this interview with Conor McGregor at BKFC, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's listen to what more Chandler has to say. Oh, I know. Oh, no, I don't. No, I don't. Yeah, I do. Maybe I don't. Possibly.
I don't know. It's the one thing, everybody, and see, the funny thing about me is I've always given my opponents a ton of respect, right? I think you guys have felt that. You guys have seen that. Maybe probably too much because we're all supposed to be tough guys and hate each other and act like a bunch of pugilist idiots, but that's not me. I respect a man who leaves his family and becomes a different human being for 12 weeks at a time to do what we do.
Or 9 months. Maybe if you left like January, I'm just hypothetically January 2024. So maybe you return in September 2024, maybe. Or maybe you're leaving again. Maybe you return in August. I don't know. He's been in training camp for 2 years.
And I look at a guy like Conor, and I respect him and who he is. And there's a difference between booking Conor McGregor for a fight and booking every single person here in Las Vegas tonight.
Yeah, Conor's rich and does coke and drinks profusely and cheats on his wife and doesn't take camp seriously. For all we know, he broke his pinky toe out drunk wandering around. But listen to him defend Conor. Conor single-handedly ruined this man's legacy and career, strung him along to the point he shouldn't even be in their top 15. And he's like, yeah, there's a difference between Conor and everyone else. Yeah.
Booking me, booking everybody else in the entire sport. It's just different. So there's different things to consider. There's different dates that need to be thrown out. There's very few limited dates that you can put Conor McGregor on. There's different venues that you can't put Conor McGregor on. There's different locations that you can't put Conor McGregor on. So it's bigger and there's a lot more layers. So I can't speak to why it's not happening, but either way, I love the fight against Conor. I will fight Conor in 2025, but right now we're going to pivot and we're going to beat Charles.
Yeah, I'm sure you will fight him. By the way, guys, I know everyone finds these Chandler videos hilarious and funny, and all I'm doing is spitting facts here. Listening to Chandler talk and saying, yeah, walk on, kid, all the stuff you guys don't hear, because I listen to these in their entirety. It's painful, guys. It's truly painful. I can't wait for this saga to be over, but I will continue to cover it mercilessly because I won't dare feel sorry for Michael Chandler. Plus, people are like, Joe, you just don't like Chandler. I am not kidding when I say Chandler has been one of my favorite fighters, or was one of my favorite fighters for the longest time. I watched the majority of his fights in Bellator, the old Dave and Buster's commercials, okay? I knew that he was ruining his career. I knew that he was wasting all this time for nothing. And it drove me nuts, and it drove a lot of other fans nuts as well. That's what started this whole saga. But then as it's gone on, and I've just realized how brain dead he is, and the way he's acted towards Conor is just utter humiliation. I can't respect it at all. I just can't respect it at all. Now, the next clip we're going to move on to is, it really doesn't even need to be in here, but the woman who asked the previous question that you heard, with like a 8-second question, she absolutely bodies Michael Chandler here.
What I'm trying to do.
And last one for me. What did you learn about yourself in those years waiting for him?
I needed it.
What did you learn about yourself in all those years waiting for him? Imagine hearing that. That had to hurt. That had to hurt. I think that hurt. That broke his soul. Watch this. Watch his reaction to this.
What I'm trying to do.
And last one for me. What did you learn about yourself in those years waiting for him?
I needed it.
Yeah, you needed it. You said you love fighting. You said you want to fight for the title. You want to have these electrifying fights. But yeah, you needed it. And he goes on to cope. Said, yeah, I needed the time off because I fought 5 times in 3 years or 2 years or whatever it may be. Just crazy. Next clip. I'm only going to play you a very small part of this. So I'll give you a little bit more context. He's talking about when he was busy when he first came into the UFC. But I have to play this clip because this is what he did all year. He's talking about training camps and being away from his wife and family. And he had the audacity to say this. And he's not even mad about Conor stringing him along where he's been at training camp all year away from his family. Listen to this. He talks about his wife being a single mom.
And then my wife being a single mom, it takes a toll on you. And every single fight was huge.
So he left his wife as a single mom for Conor McGregor, but is he pissed at Conor? That's the real question. Is he pissed at Conor? Because that's the next question asked. That's the next question we're going to get to. Are you pissed off at Conor McGregor? Listen to this. Are you pissed off, Chandler, at Conor? What does he have to say? Of course he's going to be, right? He's going to be at least a little bit aggravated, right? He's definitely not going to brown nose him and suck him off, right?
A moment to step away from the sport.
Michael, is part of you pissed off at Conor?
When I heard that question asked, what I imagined in my head, it was 20 times more delusional and devoid of logic and disconnected from reality. What he's about to say here may be the most delusional statement I've ever heard come from Michael Chandler, and that is insane to even say. But just wait for it. Just wait for it.
No, man. I mean, I'm not going to let another man control my emotions and let another man control my life.
What? Hold up. No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
No, man. I mean, I'm not going to let another man control my emotions and let another man control my life.
I'm not going to let another man control my emotions. I'm not going to let another man control my life. You can't make this shit up. What reality is he living in? You did exactly what Conor wanted you to do for the last 2 years. You let him control your life for 2 years, sitting on the sidelines, brown-nosing him, sniffing his ass, all right? And just, yeah, Conor's romantic about the sport, and yeah, I'm going to be leaving my family here in a couple days because in 1 month, we'll be 6 months away from a potential fight at a weight class we don't know, and it all comes down to Conor McGregor. You'll do what you're told. He did what he's told. And he's definitely been controlling his emotions and his life. So to even say that, I'm surprised the entire media group didn't bust out laughing. I'm not going to let him control my life. But let's get into it more because there's plenty more to look at. You ain't going to believe it. It's going to be one of my longest videos ever. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that good stuff. Share the video as well.
Over the last year and a half, it's been an ebb and flow and an up and down of craziness. You guys see the way he lives his life. You guys see the tweets. You guys see the media machine, the constant attention that Conor McGregor is. And me being the guy on the other side, who I'm just a quieter guy by nature when it comes to not trying to put myself in the headlines nonstop and not trying to be a part of the conversation all the time. I'm not mad at him at all. I wish Conor the best. He has earned every right to be in the position that he is. He has earned every right to do what he wants to do, operate the way that he wants to operate.
That is crazy. A man just wasted 2 years of your career to not fight you and probably is never going to fight you. And you're like, yeah, I can't hate on him for it. I can't be aggravated about it. He's earned that right. By doing what? Never defending a belt? Won one fight since 2016? I mean, this guy has more sexual assault allegations than wins since 2016. It is 2024 going on 2025. That's 8 years going on 9 years. And you're acting like he's some role model and some, guy that's, won a Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, he's earned every right to string me along for years when I'm already out of my prime. I mean, just crazy to even say that. And again, I told you what Chandler should have done. He should have said, Conor's scared of me. Conor doesn't want to fight me. Conor doesn't want to step in the octagon with me because I will send him into irrelevancy. And that's why he ducked and dodged me and wasted my career. But guess what? I'm gonna come back with a vengeance, and I'm going for that title. And I want that title. Everyone would have respected that. That's all he had to do.
But like I said, his road back to the UFC goes through Nashville, Tennessee, and Michael Chandler. That's it.
Have you lost any respect for him?
Have you lost any respect for him? Look at that smirk. Look at that smirk. He's like, nah, I still got a brown nose him. I got a brown. Michael Chandler could tell you what Conor had for dinner last night. He'd be like, Salisbury steak, mashed potatoes. That would be Chandler. But yeah, has he lost any respect for him? Could he have possibly lost any respect for him? Let's listen to what Chandler has to say here.
No. I mean, I think he's exactly who we think he is, right? But I don't think he is who we think he is from his public persona. I think he's different than his caricature that he leads on to be.
What does that even mean? I think he's exactly who we think he is, but he's not who we think he is with his character, who we are led to believe. What? This man is twisting himself into pretzels to somehow compliment Conor McGregor for wasting his career. Humiliating.
I think he's romantic about the sport. I think he is very grateful for the sport of mixed martial arts.
By the way, we haven't even got to the worst parts yet. We have not even got to the worst parts and the most delusional parts. We're about to get to them in a second.
He would not be anything without the sport of mixed martial arts. He would be nothing without the UFC. I think he knows that.
Facts. He would be nothing without the UFC. Next clip we're going to get to. I think he's asked, are you sure Conor's ever even going to come back? Something along those lines.
Right now, this beautiful event in Las Vegas, Nevada, these men and women pouring their hearts out. He wants that. He needs that. And he will come back to the UFC. And he's going to fight me.
Yeah, he's trying to manifest it here. Now, these last two clips from the Chandler interview are two of the most delusional clips that I've seen. And one of them is contradictory of something he said literally a couple minutes ago, which we'll just talk about when we get to it because it's completely ridiculous that he even said this. I think he was asked, are you confident you'll be the guy to fight Conor when he returns? Which is crazy. Imagine having confidence at this point.
Happens. I think the public perception is, Conor thinks he can come back and dictate who he comes back and fights. Let him think that. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But more than anything, 4 weeks ago,
he acts like Conor can't dictate who he fights when he comes back. But he just said he's earned the right to do whatever he wants to do. Makes absolutely no sense. And it gets even worse here. Because he starts breaking down how he made the decision to finally move on. And it's worse than you could have ever imagined.
Whiteboarded an entire path out with my wife, Bree, who is the...
This man, let me rewind this. This man is so broken. Him and his wife were writing on a whiteboard trying to manage his career after 2 years wasted on Conor McGregor. Listen to this again. I rewind it just so you could hear it in its entirety. This man is writing on a dry erase board. Should we wait for Conor? Yes or no? Wait for Conor McGregor? Yes or no?
I whiteboarded an entire path out with my wife, Bree, who is the the most wise person I've ever been around in my entire life. And we made this decision. We sat down and we said, we're pivoting, we're fighting Charles Oliveira, and this is why. There's 5 different reasons why. And
this man needed a whiteboard to tell him to pivot away from Conor McGregor. Luckily, he had some dry erase markers. Otherwise, he'd probably still be waiting. I made a thumbnail a while ago. What it was like, McGregor fight 2026, question mark. Isn't it crazy that that's literally very close to becoming reality potentially? It's not happening until 2025 if it even happens. I don't want to hear any shit even if it ends up happening in 2025. You know, broken clock is right twice a day. I was right for 2 years. But yeah, he had to get a whiteboard. And then this last clip, I started to feel sorry for him. I truly started to feel sorry for him. And then he just took back any goodwill that he had. He's asked about, how do you feel about the hate that you've been getting in the comments and this and that? And he has the audacity to say that it's online bots.
And community, I'm a lot deeper than most people. So yeah, when I see comments and I just wonder what is going on with someone's mind or heart or spirit whenever they say the things that they're saying.
Like, I'm feeling bad right here. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I have been too hard. But it comes from a sense of frustration. I'm just speaking my mind. If we were best friends, I'd be saying the same thing to him. Like, dude, what's wrong with you? Are you stupid? You got to do this. You got to do that. I mean, I get it. I'm nobody. You know, I'm not saying you should listen to me. But it's so plainly to see what was going on this entire time. A lot of the MMA community called on maybe 6 months ago. And it's frustrating when you have a fighter that you really enjoy watching fight. And he's on in the tail end of his career. And this is what he does. He sits out and hopes and prays a guy returns and shows him some attention. That's why a lot of people are pissed off. And that's why a lot of people have been hateful. And it doesn't even, you know, get into the fact, and I've told you guys this plenty of times, you know, people are like, why do you keep covering this? This dude, how many wolf tickets did this guy sell? How many dates did he tell you guys were 100% going to happen? He was teasing this fear not that long ago. I mean, he's getting the fans excited for fights that aren't going to happen because he's reading self-help books. And he's like, I got to manifest this. I'm going to manifest this. But then he goes on to say, yeah, those aren't real people. It's just bots.
Part of it is just social media. I'm also convinced that half of it is bot farms and fake hate and fake division and fake venom.
Yeah, it's those same bot farms that hate on Power Slap, Chandler. I mean, how crazy is that? I could not believe that when I heard him say that. This man is so delusional. He thinks it's bot farms. I rewinded that because I need you guys to hear it again.
Of it is bot farms and fake hate and fake division and fake venom. But I've always been steadfast that I am a one-man show on this earth.
All right, you're a one-man show on this earth. Doesn't matter. You sat out for 2 years. There was no show. The show was canceled for 2 years. Thank God you're finally returning on your 2-year anniversary. You said, you know what? I can do 2 years, but 3 years is where I draw the line, buddy. And he's finally moving on. So that's the end of the Chandler delusion, humiliation, utter embarrassment. You know, if you guys have to let me know down in the comments what you think of Chandler in that interview, because I thought that was one of the worst delusional interviews he's ever given. Now let's move on to Conor McGregor, because the same day that the news was announced about Chandler versus Oliveira 2, we have Conor McGregor at BKFC, or the next day, I think it actually might have been. And Conor's asked specifically about how do you feel about Chandler Oliveira. So listen to this.
Conor, earlier today, Dana White announced that Michael Chandler was going to be taking another fight prior to fighting you. You've expressed interest in fighting Jeremy Stephens. Where do you feel that you are at in your career right now?
He's expressed interest in fighting Jeremy Stephens. He wants out of his UFC contract. Mark my words. There is a high probability he never fights in the UFC again. I'm not ready to just die on that hill. I think there's, you know, a better chance that he doesn't than he does. But the fact that he's even being asked questions like this, he pulled out with a broken pinky toe. He talks about here in a second, and I've covered it extensively. Every time he does an interview and he's asked about it, he's like, I got 2 fights left on my deal. 2 fights left. Because he wants that Saudi Arabia money. Maybe he wants to fight in BKFC against literal scrubs where he's part owner and going to build up his own company and also be able to handpick his opponents. But let's listen to his answer here.
You know, I got tested this evening. I got tested today by the Drug-Free Sport Agency. I'm the most tested athlete on the roster.
By the way, I need to make a video on Drug-Free Sport, the new drug testing by the UFC. By the way, drug-free sports are just the people that collect the samples. The UFC's drug testing system is actually all in-house, okay? And what I mean by that is the people deciding on who's tested and what's the, amount of testing that's done, and they have the results. They have different companies that they pay to do the physical collection and the physical testing. But at the end of the day, the person who's overseeing it all is a person that was handpicked by the UFC. And one thing that's problematic about that, and I've talked about this over a year ago, is guess what? They can use the drug testing system to be vindictive. Is that not what's probably happening here? Conor's the most tested athlete on the roster. Why do you think that might be? You think it could be contract disputes? So test this guy left and right. And I pray we catch him. Then we'll suspend him. We won't suspend him for that long, but we'll suspend him and we'll ice his contract. That's just a whole nother layer to that. Now, I have to think about that and dissect that more, but I just wanted to tell you guys and put that in your mind right now. The first person to ever mention that. They're using drugs testing to be vindictive against fighters during contract disputes. Remember that. I'm going to make a video dedicated on that in the future.
By more than twice the amount. I believe I'm tested maybe 13 times. The amount of seconds it took me to finish Jose Aldo, 13 times. And, actually, funny enough, Jose Aldo was number 2 in the testing. I think he's been tested 6 times.
Well, isn't that convenient? Isn't Jose Aldo on his last fight on his UFC contract as well? That is convenient. I didn't even think of that until he just said that. I'm pretty sure. I don't think Aldo signed a new contract. He came back because he wanted to get out of his UFC contract. And you know what's funny? Oh, they gave him Jonathan Martinez. Then they gave him Mario Batista. And then they're also testing him nonstop. You think that's a coincidence? Again, that's a topic for a whole nother video. Let's carry on.
So I've been tested more than twice. All these other athletes, yet I struggle to get a date. So, I've talked to Sheikh Turkey and said, Sheikh Turkey, can you assist me here?
He's not going to Dana White. He's not going to Hunter Campbell. He's talking to Sheikh Turkey, the guy from Saudi Arabia. He's saying, can you help me? He wants a date. There's more going on between the UFC and Conor McGregor than meets the eye. I've covered this extensively. I have other videos on it. You can go watch it. He has 2 fights left on his deal. Basically, it's a combination of Conor being unreliable, but also the UFC wanting to stretch this out as long as possible for a multitude of reasons. 1, to try to lock Conor up to a long-term deal. 2, they have a TV rights deal that's coming up as well. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes with Conor McGregor and the UFC.
As far as Chandler rematching Oliveira, I'm happy with the date. It's November. Maybe we can still do it after, if they're not going to line me out till maybe December, January, February, or one of.
I don't understand what that means. Maybe somebody can clarify. I'm happy with the date. Maybe we can do it after, unless they're going to line me out to December. Does he want to fight in December? I mean, Dana says he's not going to fight till 2025. So theoretically, it's not going to be probably January. I think January's in California. Then I think February is going to be in Australia. So it's not going to be till March or April. So that would be, Chandler should be able to turn around. I think he'd turn around even if he got his leg cut off. But I don't know if he says maybe they're going to offer me a date for December. Obviously it wouldn't happen. I'm not 100% sure what he meant by that.
These dates, maybe we can still do it. I'm just a bit, out of the loop with it, So all I can do is carry on doing what I'm doing. I test under the testing administration. I train daily, and that's it. Let's see what happens. Hopefully, it all comes to fruition.
So he has no idea what's going on. I'm out of the loop. I'm begging Sheikh Turkey to help me get a date. He's not talking to Dana White. This is the biggest star in the UFC, coming back from a catastrophic injury over a 3-year layoff at this point. It's going to be close to a 4-year layoff. And that was his answer. Does that make you reassured that Chandler's still going to get that fight? He says maybe we can do it afterwards. And if that didn't convince you that Conor may never come back, we're going to listen to this last clip where he talks about he wants to fight in BKFC. He'd rather fight in BKFC. He wants to get an exemption to fight in BKFC because he wants to stay active. He wants to stay active.
When's a realistic timeline for you?
Like I said, I have 2 fights left on my UFC contract.
Every interview he mentions he has 2 fights left. That's not a coincidence.
My opponent that I was scheduled to fight has rescheduled another bout. I would love maybe an exemption or maybe a joint partnership, bare knuckle UFC, similar to McGregor Sports and Entertainment and Mayweather Promotions.
He wants an exemption to go fight in BKFC. How do you think that request is going to go over with Dana White? By the way, how did no media at UFC Noche ask Dana White about that? Oh, Conor says he wants an exemption to be able to box in BKFC. I would have loved to hear Dana's answer on that. But no, they were too busy talking about, yeah, the screens at Noche really blew me away, bro. It was unbelievable. That love letter was incredible, Dana. There was really no questions of any substance at the presser. But yeah, isn't that crazy? You have Conor McGregor, who's coming up on 4 years of inactivity, creeping up on his sunset clause, which means basically you get out of your UFC contract. And he's talking about he wants an exemption to go box in BKFC, the company that he owns. There's a lot of layers to this, boys. A lot of layers to this.
Some sort of agreement where we can get busy. I need to be busy, and right now I'm working to get there. So let's see what happens. Like I said, I have 2 fights left on the contract, and it's taken a minute, but patience is one of the most important skills a human being can possess, study, learn, and implement, and that's where I'm at right now.
Let me rewind this a little bit because I want to give you like a final hypothesis on this whole situation. There's going to be more information that's going to come to hand soon. But listen to this. I want you to listen to Conor again here.
Patience is one of the most important skills a human being can possess, study, learn, and implement. And that's where I'm at right now.
What that tells me, what I just heard from Conor, is I'm trying to be patient. I'm not trying to air our dirty laundry. But I think Conor McGregor and the UFC are heading for a massive blow up. And I think maybe that's why Dana is so confident that Conor fights in 2025. Because he's strung it out enough. They're getting into TV negotiations soon. Maybe he's realized, okay, there's no, reeling this guy back in. And I'm telling you, the Dana White, Conor McGregor blow up, split, back and forth is going to be one for the ages. I got to be honest. I'm the guy behind the tree rubbing his hands together. Because when Conor and Dana White start turning on each other, it's going to be very, very interesting from a fan's perspective, but also from a content perspective. That's going to be one of the craziest things to cover, and I think that's coming soon if they don't get Conor a fight booked. Because it seems like he's frustrated. He wants to fight out his deal. The UFC does not want him to fight out his deal. They did this to Francis Ngannou as well. Very similar situation. So it's going to get very, very interesting. I want to know when that sunset clause. We don't know exactly when Conor signed his last deal, but his sunset clause is coming up in the next year, which means effectively he gets out of his UFC contract. It's going to be very, very interesting. Ultimately, I'm going to go out on a limb, okay? And I'm going to say Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler never happens. I could see Dustin Poirier stealing the fight. I could see a 4th fight. I could see if Conor somehow, and I don't see this happening, signs a contract extension. I think they give Conor some type of layup, maybe a Tony Ferguson. But if I had to guess right now, Conor McGregor, Jorge Masvidal, or Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier 4 will be Conor McGregor's next fight. Maybe in Saudi Arabia. I don't know what is the specific date for the Saudi Arabia pay-per-view, but he's talking to Sheikh Turkey. Sheikh Turkey pays the UFC big bucks to bring certain fights there. He's, vocalized that he wants a Conor McGregor fight there. So we'll see what happens. I'll cover it as more information comes in. Guys, do me a favor. This is a very long video. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. If you stayed all the way to the end, comment, I got one dude on my mind. That's what I want you to comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.